In the name of the one holy and undivided Trinity, amen. Please have a seat. I might be moving a little slowly through this liturgical year, but part of my brain is still caught at Palm Sunday. And I think there is a resonance there with Easter season. In some ways, the Easter season is Palm Sunday on a cosmic scale. Palm Sunday is our last little touchstone of triumph and victory before we get to Easter. It's this triumph of Jesus' entry to Jerusalem, and in Easter there is this triumph of the resurrection. On Palm Sunday we cheered and waved for the embodied, limited God in flesh. In Easter season, we celebrate the Lord that has entered all of us, that is as wide and deep and complex as we are. Lynn Knight, my wonderful mentor from St. Paul's in Salem, preached once that the point of the resurrection is that Jesus is now not just bound by one point in space and time. In Easter, we cheer and celebrate new life amidst us and between us and within us. Palms everywhere. Palms in our blood cells, palms in our bone marrow, palms in our thoughts, palms on street corners, palms among the organizing airport workers at SeaTac, palms among the extravagant poppies just outside our front doors, palms anywhere people are being released and fed and freed. I'd like to think together a little bit about material resurrections. We talked a little about how the people welcoming Jesus on Palm Sunday were not the powerhouses of that town. They were the people who admired the chutzpah of this rowdy rural kid and what was essentially his hot-wired pickup, that stolen Colt. The people who recognize him are a group that is named in the Hebrew Bible as the Anawim. This is a word that shows up in the Hebrew Bible to mean those who have been broken, the bent. In Psalm 9, we hear that the Anawim will not always be forgotten, or the hope of the afflicted perish forever. In Psalm 37, it is the Anawim who will inherit the earth. In Psalm 147, the Lord supports the Anawim. He brings the wicked down to the ground. In Psalm 149, the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will beautify the Anawim with salvation. In Proverbs, toward the scorners, the Lord is scornful, but he gives grace to the Anawim. In Isaiah, it is the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring good news to the Anawim. What I'd like us to consider for just a moment is what a material resurrection might look like for the Anawim of our neighborhood and our city. What would a good, joyful life look like for the teenagers who live on the Ave? If this isn't your city or your neighborhood, the Ave is University Way, which is just a block away, and it's a place where young people from all over the state run away to. So there's always been a youth presence of teenagers and young people living on the Ave for years. There's a very supportive community there and social services in this neighborhood. It's part of the life of our neighborhood. You think about the fact that in my apartment building, which is about 5 blocks away from here, there was a decision made by the management to physically lock our dumpsters. Our garbage is locked because people were picking through it. I mean, my take is that if someone can find something useful out of what I throw away, they are welcome to it. Sometimes we go see documentaries about, it's very sad garbage pickers in Mexico and feel terrible, but there are people surviving on garbage right here in our neighborhood. The Anawim of the Ave. Somehow, we learn from these readings that the bent and the broken have an inside track on being able to see God. Somehow, those who are below know exactly what freedom and liberation look like and what new life would mean. I think about this too in relationship to the resurrection stories that we receive in the Gospels, because we're hearing about the resurrection from groups of absolutely traumatized people, sunk in grief. I mean, these are groups of people who just watched the funniest, kindest, most authoritative person they ever met in their life bleed out in public. Most of us know that our brains don't work spectacularly well in grief. That trauma literally changes our physiology and our brain chemistry. So we're getting these stories about the resurrection from people telling them whose brains are not working perfectly. We're getting the records of the resurrection events by people who can barely walk. But I appreciate that out of that which gets remembered, absolutely, is food. And Jesus sort of says, okay, I see you're having kind of a difficult time with the resurrection. All right, it's understandable. Here, give me some fish. I'll show you something. It's pretty good. Nice char on it. There wasn't any broiled fish descending to the dead. This tastes good. Madeline Lingo once said, that's something that I've noticed about food. Whenever there's a crisis, if you can get people to eating normally, things get better. We'll add that to the list of things that Jesus and Madeline Lingle both know. Eating normally would be a good start for the Anawim of Seattle, I think. But what else? I think sometimes, especially those of us who do public advocacy and activism, can really get caught in a scarcity cycle where we're fighting for the bare minimum. And it takes a tremendous amount of work and effort to even get that, as evidenced by the fact that the bent over of this city do not have access to the bare minimum, to shelter and to food and to water. But I think it's part of our Easter job to actually be able to dream an utterly redeemed world, a totally transformed world in concrete ways, materially. Let's say there's a young woman who finally left the house where she grew up, where her dad was constantly beating her mom and where she was told that if she wanted to date girls, she could starve. This is not an unusual story among the young folks who come to live on the Ave. So she comes here. What would an Easter world look like for her? Maybe it would mean that somewhere here there would be a clean and warm bed. One would be available in a single room if that's what made her feel safe, and there would be one available in a group room if that's what made her feel safe. There would be plenty of adults trained to work with teenagers and trauma, and they would be gentle with her and available. 3 big, nutritious meals a day would be served, and there would be lots of snacks available at all times. She would be allowed to rest for as long as she needed, without being pressured to get services. She would be connected with a school when she was ready, in a process where the school was abundantly funded and the intake person had abundant time to meet her and welcome her. There would be plenty of room in her chosen classes. There would, of course, be money for her to spend on fun things, whether that was art supplies or books or video games, whatever she liked. She would get to choose from several therapists, finding the one that her gut trusted the most. There would be an immediate connection to non-judgmental health care, again, giving her the choice to pick a doctor who was not rushed, that she could trust to talk about her body and her sex life. Now, this is a fantasy on my part, right, about what would be best for her. I don't know if that's exactly what this particular young woman would need, but it's so different from the scraps model we have now, where we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, getting by on volunteers and exhausted social workers and a stressed school system and a stressed healthcare system. I think most of us, in one way or another, just through the culture, have been given a very Protestant vision of a scarce universe, where there isn't enough. And whether that's about settling for mediocre love or trying to survive in a vicious economy that is predicated on the misery of its poorest participants, we're not encouraged to think Easter, to dream of real healing, utter transformation. And I'm not sure we're going to get it if we can't dream it. So let's dream it. I've invited our Easter preachers this season to talk about what a good life looks like. Since you are all so patiently endured our Lent, talking relentlessly about death. Bless you. We're going to spend Easter talking about life. What, for you, would a resurrected world look like? Both within your own story of harm and healing, and within the story of your own family, but also the story of your block, and your city, and your nation, and your planet. Let's dream it. Let's dream it for the man who came back bodily to eat fish with us and call it good.